Oh, wait, that's why I thought I was being here. This isn't how to make your Zoom better.
I'll tell you in the chat.
Well, I mean, the breakout session that I'm hosting is going to be weird, I can tell you that.
Lisa Carnavale from Design, Rhode Island. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Shay. Hey, everybody.
We got Bonnie Nickerson, too, from the Department of Planning.
Woo! Woo!
Hey, Lisa, congrats on a great design week.
Yes. Thanks, Hallie. Yeah, it was fun. It was different. Zoomed. We were very zoomed. But yeah, it was fun. It was good.
Aru and Vaishla and Marv and everyone else who tuned in. Stay silent and hope we all get to learn a lot from each other today.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so excited to hear all this convo about creative economy. It's gonna be a pretty amazing topic.
So I think we're ready to hit it off. Stephanie, do you want to lead the way and bring us into space together?
Let's do it. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon to talk about creative economic development in the city of Providence. I'm Stephanie Fortunato. I go by she, her, hers, and I'm the director of Providence's Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism. We're thrilled to be joined once again by our amazing MCs and artist facilitation team, Shay Rivera-Rios, MJ Robinson, and Tracy Johnson. Thanks, guys, for being here. And we have our stage manager, I keep thinking of you as, Janaya Kizzy. Thanks for being here to help things run smoothly. And of course, I'm happy to be joined by my colleagues at the Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism, our amazing Cultural Affairs Manager, Gina Rodriguez-Drix, who is also the Cultural Plan Project Manager, Lizzie Araujo, who is somewhere behind the scenes, Lael Tucker, Becca Salkind, everyone's around kind of hiding. Thanks for being here today. And we are also joined today by the Steel. We've got Howie Snyder, Isla Taylor, Sally Turner. I didn't see anyone else, but there might be others back there. And we're so happy to be working with the Steelyard and the 6 other organizations who have been helping to facilitate conversations about Providence's creative ecosystem. It's kind of, there are so many topics that we're taking on, but I think it's really perfect that we're working with the Steelyard to talk about the creative economy. I think of the Steelyard really as true community builders, such examples of connectivity, how creativity begets not only more creativity, but makes connections across the creative ecosystem in all disciplines and directions there. And really the Steelyard is an example of civic participation. They are our partners on many things, the cultural plan being, well, just one of the latest now, because we're also working on a Take It Outside grant together. But creative economic development is really one of the strengths of our city. And it's the legacy of the creative sector that has driven local prosperity in the past and today, and we hope in the future. So with the cultural plan, we are thinking about Providence 2030. And we're thinking about the strategies, the initiatives, the investments and policies that we need to make to really achieve a vision of a truly thriving city, a place where arts, culture, and creativity are at the forefront, and where the sector is also resourced to be able to achieve the ambition of the vision that we create together. This current crisis has demonstrated the vulnerabilities as well as the strengths and opportunities of the sector. So many of the industries that make up the creative sector have been impacted and really some of the hardest ways by the crisis here. Many entities are facing the twin challenge of not being able to operate at all in some cases or in modified ways in others, and as well as the cost of operating within the modified context. So being able to reopen, the expense of it has really been a challenge for many entities within the creative sector. And that's for-profit and non-profit parts of the sector. I think that that's something interesting about creative economic development, is that we can't look at one or the other. We really have to look at the full spectrum of industries that are involved. Over the past 6 months, we have also seen adaptations which change the way that we work and where that we work. I don't know if folks saw the article in the New York Times this morning saying that July is the new January, so that many industries will be working remotely through July of next year. And I think that context is really important as we think about places where we see the creative economy sort of naturally clustering in our city and how it is changing. Be that in the downtown area where many people are still working remotely, telecommuting, and the spaces are being used differently, or in the Valley neighborhood where we see collaborations coming together and innovative programming happening that's really helping to bring us together and to sustain cultural vitality in this moment. Some of the tools that we have used in the past then may not be available to us. And so I hope today that we can take the opportunity to build on the lessons from the past 6 months to really come up with some strategies that will serve us well in the future. We have restaurants and hospitality industry pivoting, and some of you may have attended the Pell Lecture last year in which we began to think about the nighttime and music economies. And so, you know, with this cultural plan, you may want to get back into that only with a fresh perspective of what does it mean for these venues given the public health crisis, the safe distancing and the like. I think something that's really exciting though are the outdoor activities that are taking place everywhere. I don't know about others, but I would much rather be outdoors any day than indoors. And it's kind of exciting to see life turned, as a colleague of mine calls it, inside out. We also have seen a greater awareness of the importance of equity, of diversity, of inclusion and accessibility. Since the killings of George Floyd and the upswell of advocacy, we are really addressing the needs to make changes to how we work and really address systemic racism with actionable steps toward creating a more equitable workplace and community. And I think, you know, with this session, we might see that conversation come up around specific industry opportunities, around education and training, and of course, around community life. As with every other goal area that we are discussing in this cultural plan, each set of challenges presents an opportunity. You know, I think this is a moment in which we really are in it together and we're all thinking about how we can support one another. So that may mean more buying local. But it also brings the whole world closer to us when we have these Zoom meetings and we can have guests like Roger Cummings from Juxtaposition Arts in Minneapolis, hi, who's joined us today and bring a different perspective to our conversations. There's advocacy and policy work being done by all industries within the creative sector. And I think, again, this is a way in which we can build coalitions to advocate for more resources to support a stronger Providence, a stronger creative sector by 2030, certainly, but in the near future as well. There are innovative practices being developed during this pandemic, and I encourage us to dive into both sides of discussion in the breakout groups. In addition to Roger, who's joining us as guest speakers today, we have our friends Sabrina Chidori and Jason Almeida from Stay Silent Trade Pop-Up. Give a wave there. James Mark is joining us from North. Thanks for being here. And before we get into the conversation, we are starting all of our studio discussions, all of our cultural planning processes with a land acknowledgement that was created by Lindsay Montanari for this cultural planning process. Lindsay Montanari is a cultural educator, singer, and storyteller. Lindsay's passion for education shines through within her artwork. She is a Narragansett artist whose focus is on being an authentic Indigenous person in the 21st century. She has participated in art shows throughout Southern New England with art that pushes against stereotypes of what it means to be an Indigenous artist. She is currently attending College Unbound, pursuing a degree in organizational leadership and change, and has aspirations to empower her local Indigenous community through her work. And so I'd like to ask Janaea to help us by starting the land acknowledgement.
what I said there loosely was, hi, my name is Lindsay. In English, my name is Wamasupitan, or Loving Sea in the Narragansett language. Thank you for having me today, and I am a member of the Narragansett tribe. So today I am going to be giving a prayer. I am going to give a land acknowledgement, and then I am going to sing a song in the Narragansett language to hopefully frame our mindset going into the meeting and to acknowledge the Narragansett people. Katabatash namanatuman. Katabatash kakistiyu ninawag. Katabatash wachi kakistiyu papusawag kakachi. Katabatash wachi wami. Katabatash wachi nukasaki. Katabatash namanatuman. Nuwachi kakistiyu ninawag. Ginawan akistiyu wamanitank. So what I said there loosely was, thank you, Creator, thank you for making the people. Thank you for making the young and the old. Thank you for giving us Mother Earth. Thank you, because you created the people, we can create love. Today I was asked to give a land acknowledgement. We meet here today on Narragansett land, but as a Narragansett tribal member myself, I always find it interesting, this concept of a land acknowledgement. Today, a land acknowledgement has become something important. It is important because at one time, all of Rhode Island was Narragansett land. All of the United States was indigenous land. Often in these moments, we are asked to acknowledge a specific small location. During these times, people ask about the significance or the sacredness of these small, specific plots of land. My answer to those questions? Land is sacred. Land has and is being stripped from indigenous people. These land acknowledgements are so that we do not forget. The indigenous people here in the United States faced genocide. A genocide that was so strong, so powerful, that we have to remind ourselves that this land did not always belong to the United States. I find it funny, this concept of land acknowledgement, though, because my people did not believe in land ownership. When we speak about this land that was home to the Narragansetts, when we speak about this land that was home to the indigenous people of this continent, we take it for granted. We can go to sleep without fear of our villages being burned to the ground, that we won't be forcibly stripped from our homes, and that our children will not be taken against our will. Yes, here in Rhode Island, our indigenous people face that too, not just those out west. Here in Rhode Island, Narragansett people were displaced as far as Wisconsin and Bermuda. Roger Williams claimed he bought our land not with money, but with love. How could he buy land from people who did not believe land could be bought? I ask us not only to acknowledge, but to remember. We are still here. Against it all, we are still surviving. Remember us. We remember. Although we have been forced to assimilate, we remember the ways of our ancestors. We still live here. Though often we are not seen, our children still face oppressions at their schools. We face job inequity and systematic racism. Yet we move forward, each day taking another step. My people always talk about making a difference for the next 7 generations. This means that long after we are on this earth, the impact we make is still having an effect. When we keep this mindset in mind, it reminds us that all of our actions can make a difference, negative or positive. As we move forward with this meeting today, I want us to keep that idea in mind, making a difference for the next 7 generations. Although this is just a 10-year plan, the repercussions of it will have a ripple effect. How can we be inclusive of all people? How can we be inclusive of the Narragansett people, the original people of this land, who are still here living on this land today, many of them right here in Providence? How can we make a difference for the next 7 generations to come? Remember us. Finally, I am going to end with a song that I wrote myself, and I think that it should really hopefully it will frame the mindset we'll have going into this meeting. It translates to, I wish you love, I wish you peace, and I wish you happiness. Na tuyantam gin wamani tong, na tuyantam gin wamani tong, na tuyantam gin wamani tong, wamani tong, wamani tong. Na tuyantam gin nakine, na tuyantam gin nakine, na tuyantam gin akine, 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 akine. Na tuyantam gin wuniu, na tuyantam gin wuniu, na tuyantam gin wuniu, waniu, waniu, waniu. So Katavatash, thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I love starting our programs that way. I say thank you. She's on a video. Maybe she's joining us. Okay, now we're going to turn it over to the artist facilitators. And I think, MJ, you're going to run through the agenda for us?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
I found that really grounding, thinking about making a difference for the next 7 generations and knowing that we're going to use our time together to think really big and outside of what might seem feasible in the next, couple of months or even couple of years, and think and dream big for Providence 2030 and the ripple effect of what we do now into our future generations. So on that note, I will just let you know what we're going to be doing today. A brief overview. We had our welcome from Stephanie and the Art, Culture, Tourism team, who will be holding the ideas that we share and creating policy that we can all use to bring forward the Providence we'd like to see. We had the land acknowledgement from Lindsay. Next, we're going to hear an introductory statement from Howie at the Steelyard, who is a really amazing community leader who's going to be helping us think about a healthy creative economy moving forward. Then we have our 3 awesome speakers that we will get different kinds of perspectives and ideas from, just to remind us of what some of this work can look like, does look like, both here locally and beyond. We will have a little break. You can go get yourself a tea or a water or a snack, get a bathroom break. We'll put on some music for a few minutes. And then right after the break, which will happen around 3, we will be splitting into about 6 breakout groups. And these are like the best part of all of these cultural planning meetings, because it's the time for us to really dive deep into big questions and nitty gritty and get to know a couple new people in our city. I've left all of these so inspired by the other people around me and the kind of synergy that comes from talking together. And this is also the moment where AC&T is collecting information about what people want to see for our creative economy moving forward. So this is like the juicy part of the meeting. We'll have some time to come together as a big group to share out a few highlights, and then we'll hear a couple more things from the ACT team around how you can continue to contribute ideas and come to other sessions, submit ideas digitally, and a few other, who you can go to with questions and things like that. So without further ado, I will pass off the mic to Howie Schneider.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, MJ. It is so good to see so many faces, albeit virtually, today. And, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank, the Mayor and Arts, Culture, and Tourism for organizing this effort, for listening to us, and taking the time to really solicit feedback and seed the community with these conversations. It's the Steelyard's absolute honor to be here. And for those of you who don't know us, the Steelyard's a nonprofit industrial arts organization. We're located in the Valley of Providence, and we provide space, tools, education, and workforce training in the industrial arts, and also have a fabulous event space and do a lot of community partnerships and events. We teach welding, blacksmithing, jewelry, ceramics, and foundry arts. And we're also a micro manufacturer. We produce public art, one-of-a-kind amenities like bike racks, benches, fences, which I'm sure you've all seen around Providence, and partnered with a lot of organizations and industries to do that. And we do it by hiring local artists and fabricators. We source materials locally to the best of our ability, and we build manufacturing networks so that Providence can build and do things its own. And the creative economy, is obviously central to our work. And the creative economy and community in Providence is really an asset we rely on, because it's clear that we need a healthy, well-housed, well-fed, educated, safe, and supported creative workforce just to be able to do our work. So we have to advocate for fair wages. And we also have to advocate for fair pricing of goods and services for local artists, designers, suppliers, and contractors, because we're bringing technical skills, life experience, cultural traditions, and expression to communities and need to be supported for it. But the work is bigger than that as well. It also requires lawyers, bankers, engineers, and dozens of behind-the-scene partners to support every creative effort. And we all know what that's like. And we know how our businesses and cultural health are impacted by the participation of all of those different parties. And as I think about creative economy, the creative economy is the way that we let those other partners know how valuable their work is to supporting cultural exchange. I'm really excited today, though, to hear from our speakers. They're going to frame some conversations about why a healthy creative economy is critical and what needs to change or keep changing to make it more inclusive, diverse, and sustainable. They'll speak to the visual arts, design, education, performing arts, event management, nightlife, culinary arts, crafts, and the value of buying local. And I think we'll hear in each of their stories how relationships are really the key. And like any healthy relationships, they're built on valuing each other and every partner for their contributions. But also, like every relationship, not all parties begin on equal footing. And I think we can all do better to advocate for inclusive policies that help us correct historic marginalization, racism, and exclusion, and make the creative economy more just, more inclusive, and more robust in the future. The next 10 years are going to be a great time to build on that success. We can challenge the city to continue their work of broad coalition building and inclusive efforts like PVD Fest, but we can also make sure that the creative economy has year-round, day-to-day opportunities in every neighborhood and community in Providence. So let's get to our speakers, but first, while our speakers are talking, please take notes. If you can put questions in the chat box, please do. I'll monitor the chat box while they're speaking, and afterwards we'll have a few minutes for a little Q&A to get to know them and or their processes a little deeper. And if you can't use the chat box for some reason, raise your hand and we'll try to get to you. But I'm really excited to have our speakers here today and share their view and their understanding of how the creative economy can work for all of us. So I'd like to hand this conversation over to our first guest speaker, who's traveled here from North Minneapolis, a city at the center of protest and possibility, and an organization called Juxtaposition Arts. It's a teen-staffed artist studio design center, retail space, skate park, and more. Roger Cummings, co-founder and creative director, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Let's see. Go ahead and start this. All right, here we go. So my name is Roger Cummings. And like how we said, we are a art and design youth social enterprise. And so I like for people to think about MIT Media Lab combined with like the Bauhaus through a Black lens. Like that's how I like to describe it. And I am the chief cultural producer as well as one of the founders. So to give some context, Juxta is located in North Minneapolis, which has the highest percentage of people under 22. So it's a very, very young community, and it's a very diverse community. This is like our Black community. There is also a lot of Southeast Asian, so it's like a big, dense and young area. We are located at an intersection called Broadway and Emerson, 2 bus lines. And we got our start so we had an art studio. We made it really nice. We got kicked out because the owner could get more money for it if he split it up. And so we were going around and asking people if we could rent their land, their like buildings. And we came upon this parcel, and the owner said that, no, you can't buy it, but we won't rent to you, but you can buy it, and we can do a contract for deed. And so this one parcel, which there was condemned areas on each side and across the street and down the block, said yes, we'll do a contract for deed, and we can make this happen. They were in their late 70s, so they just didn't want to own property for like ever. And so this was our first project back in 2000 to 2003. And so once we started to open our doors, we ended up influencing other people to be able to do their areas, their facades and such. So kind of the goal for us is to produce material, financial, and educational benefit through these core focus areas. So a lot of what you're going to see is things that we were doing in high school. So I started as a break dancer and graffiti artist. And then I also did like airbrush shirts and did graphic design and things like that. So in order to get into juxtaposition, you take a course called VALT, Visual Arts Literacy Training. And once you complete that, and so this is like doing like still life and do portraiture. And so you get to a certain college level bar, and then you can apply for one of the labs in Juxta. And so the labs are like mini social enterprises. They're like small micro businesses. So one of the labs is like contemporary art, public art. And so we do things like ceramics and paintings, and we do murals, obviously, with aerosol and acrylic. And then also, if you want to be like a contemporary artist, like this is like the place to go, because we bring in artists that are showing at like the Whitney Biennials or Art Basel to go ahead and talk and work with some of the young people who aspire to like be that kind of artist, be somebody who people are going to collect and things like that. So just kind of a few pictures of like people who come up and work with the young people. So we promote a methodology of a 21st century practicing artist, not like you would see in like the 80s, very soloist, I have my own studio, my beret, and everything circles around me, but more of a collaborative community, self-determined business acumen, not somebody who's going to have a subsidizer or a patron to live, but somebody who can make their own money and help other people make money. Textiles and screen printing is our other lab. So we do anything from screen print t-shirts to do cut and sew fashion and backpacks and things like that. Teaching young people those skills on how to come out with their own line. And we have lines that come out every year. We do pop-ups. We have a graphic design lab. where you do anything from like logos. We teach everybody how to do the software in their labs. So graphic design would be a lot of the Adobe suite and so on. And also to get their own voice out, they do their own posters and do like a poster show. And they do collaborations as well. I think that's one of our things, is to be able to do collaborations with different groups and entities. I'll get into more of the numbers in a little bit, but one of our biggest labs is the environmental design lab. So environmental design, if you want to be an architect, landscape architect, urban designer, this is where you go. The people who teach this class are also architects who come from the neighborhood and who look like them. And so they learn everything from SketchUp to the Adobe suite. They learn how to do models, and people will come and if like a developer is going to do a development and they want it to be a nice and unique and authentic development, they're going to try to have something that stands out, that is special. And so they'll come to us for things like bike racks or benches, and the young people will design those and keep them flavorful and dope, as we know young people like to do. So just an example of like some of the renderings that young people do, and then what those renderings look like when they actually come to life. And so by the time you're 14, 15, 16, not only are you earning an hourly wage, but your portfolio is getting nice and robust. And so this helps you get into internships. This helps you get into colleges and things like that. In the era of COVID, we asked ourselves as artists, what can we do and what should we be doing? And so the young people came up with hand washing stations and drinking fountains and things like that. Things that you can still keep social distance and also wash your hands and like keep it clean. We also go to vacant lots and ask the business owners if they would like us to activate these lots. And so these are some of the examples of what was once a lot into kind of a placemaking, vibrant area. An example of sculptural elements. So people would commission us. This is from the Guthrie Theater to actually do a sculpture to make the Guthrie more vibrant, just something that pops. If you've ever been to the Guthrie, it's like very blue and very yellow and just like this big monolith. And so this is a way to bring some light and some energy to it. And so this is what our group of young designers came up with to make the Guthrie pop. One thing that we've gotten really good at, we have an offshoot of environmental design, which is called tactical urbanism. And this is more about community engagement and prototyping and interventions. And so there was a city program that came out with parklets. And so like that was our city parklet, which is like whatever. And this is the city parklet the next year. And we were like, we could come up with something so much doper, like what would a parklet look like if we designed it? And so we started to create models and ended up designing our own parklet that we can put up for like commercial, other people can buy it. It can be different colors, but something that has music, something that has bubbles, something that has, some flavor and dopeness that like young people created. And a part of that, we worked with and collaborated with some of the furniture designers that design things for like Target, like that's the bar. So you want to be able to work with people who have the skills and can get you into some of these markets. And so Blue Dot, we started a collaboration with the Final Four, heard about that collaboration and said, hey, when we're going to do the Final Four, why don't you design our office for us? And so we did some different design interventions for the office. And then that turned into the backboards for the Final Four teams when they came. The Super Bowl. So the things that we're looking at is like, how can we be involved in a lot of the things that come to Minneapolis or Minnesota, but we're not actually vendors. And so we're trying to be vendors. We're trying to keep some of that money in North Minneapolis, in the homes in North Minneapolis, and in the pockets of the young people at Juxta. And tactical urbanism, like I said before, it's like a community engagement component. So we know how to do that really, really well. So designing games, designing engagements that look at social service and to kind of have an empathy test of like, you know, what social service is really like for young people, and then do a training for the people who administer that so they know what it feels like and how they get the runaround. Also, we do for developers and for the city, community engagement, and we go out to the people. We don't have that 6 o'clock meeting that you're supposed to go to, but we go to grocery stores, we go to community events, and like bring that process to the, you know, to the people. We create tools like these bikes so that we can go to different places and set up a little easier, and it's more dynamic and flavorful, and we get a lot more civic engagement than a traditional city or developer process. We play games, we do zines and things like that, instead of having kind of a clipboard and like these series of like designs. So like transit planners in the county and transit organizations will hire us because we do a better job than they could, you know, like possibly do. Lastly, and I'll finish up, we have an artist co-op space so that other people in the community who can't afford spaces that are too expensive, we charge $1 a square foot, and this becomes a place where, you know, local small business owners can, you know, not be overburdened by like super high rent. And I will end with our skate plaza and some of the results. So we employ 70 young people and another 30 working artists in the different creative economies. And this like all didn't happen over like 2 or 3 years. We started this concept in probably 2010, and right now we earn close to $700,000 a year. These are some of our collaborators. The young people get paid anywhere at the minimum 15, at the maximum about 35 an hour. And we are in a capital campaign to build a place that we can fabricate on site instead of sending that money out into the outside of our neighborhood. So that's it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Roger. That I have so many questions. I hope that, and just congratulations and thank you for bringing those ideas and for all you're doing there. You know, everyone, please throw your questions into the chat box, and we'll get to them a little later. Really, I'm so glad you're able to stick around for the rest of these conversations today too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And next, we're gonna switch, pull the focus a little more local again with 2 folks that I hope many of you are already working with and know about, who have been bringing the value of performance art and visual art and sound to the community for years through their nonprofit Stay Silent PVD. Jay and Sabrina, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, just want to actually correct that Stay Silent PVD is a for-profit business, and we have a nonprofit arm and organization called Trade Pop-Up that focuses on creative entrepreneurship. But Stay Silent PVD is a for-profit, and that's why we're so excited to talk about the creative economy.
Usually, like from our experience, we notice that like arts, food, music, and culture in Providence are usually like ironically lumped into the nonprofit category. We believe that our work shows that like you can be a for-profit business and make a living in the city, and that's something I think that really doesn't get highlighted much in our sector. The majority of our work is done in event production and design. We spend the largest part of our annual budget paying artists, so that includes graphic designers and DJs. Our largest yearly event, which we do twice a summer, unfortunately we couldn't do it this past year. Last summer we were able to do with 2,500 person capacity and 3,500 person capacity, and that's an event that we do called Datro. And with that, we hire over 100 staff members from local businesses within the community. We also strategically engage with Black-owned and minority businesses. For our last Datro, all of our vendors were minority-owned except for one. This includes the AV company, which provides the stage and sound, the sanitation company, our restroom vendor, food vendors, and all of the other vendors that we have to engage to produce this event. Something I think has been the most important for Stay Silent over the last few years has been like, since for us, it's like, we really have to educate like our consumer, our customer. A lot of these people are people that, you know, we have people that come to our events that we both have known since we were like in elementary school. And for us, we think it's been important to just like show people that there's value in these events. So a lot of times it's like, you know, the exchange doesn't just stop like when you go to the door and pay the ticket, but it's like, how do you produce content? How do you help tell stories? How do you help give an audience to like other creatives in our community? So for us, like myself, obviously I'm a DJ, but I can't DJ every single event. So we bring in other DJs to give them the platform. DJs from like across New England, other up and coming DJs in the city, and then also graphic and visual artists. Something that's been really, really important for the growth of our business is using design and consistent online campaigns, as well as creating an RSVP system, which adds value to free, as we like to call. So like in the beginning, when we first started throwing events, specifically Day Trail and some of our smaller boutique events, what we would do is you would RSVP for free, but for RSVPing for free or getting free admission, we would get your first name, last name, and a way to contact you, preferably email. So this would allow us to build a community and have constant communication with our audience. Over the last, I want to say 7 years, we've built an email list of close to 15,000 people. We're growing. Obviously, we have a social media following across Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And with this RSVP system, it's really helped us continue to stay in contact with our consumers. And we've seen even through COVID that this has been really important in communicating. So regardless of how the Instagram algorithm reacts, we're able to stay in contact with our community. Another thing we like to point out is we self-funded the purchase of our music venue and bar, Crib on North Main Street, which we opened prior to COVID in January. And so that was self-funded. We had no outside funding, private or traditional investment. And all of that money was raised through basically ticket sales from our past events over the last few years. And the city and statewide systems that we depend on, and we say disrupt simultaneously, are the police department, the Providence, the board of licenses, the parks department, and the fire department. And events and cultural services need all aspects of public infrastructure in order to successfully and safely sustain and function. And I think for us, we have an interesting relationship as event producers, because when we're producing, say, an event like the size of Day Trail, is we literally have to go through a city service meeting where we talk to every single department. And I think this is a bit unique in comparison to some other businesses, because in many other businesses, you may not have to interact with all of these different departments to make sure that your event can function on a high level.
Yeah, for sure. And on the second, there was a few questions that we were given to think around. And another one was about kind of unexpected relationships that we've formed, and also kind of how things that have helped organizations and entities that have supported our work, and also in some ways just that we've engaged with and had to learn how to interact with. And I think when we founded Stay Silent in 2012, our goal was to bring hip hop culture into incongruent spaces outside of just 10 to 2 nightclub spaces in a very specific format. And we also wanted to just find and create more spaces that Black and Brown people felt welcomed, celebrated, and centered. And so that was our initial purpose, but we never really recognized how much of a, I guess, justice portion there would be to this, because we truly were just event producers and marketers, and we wanted music to be in spaces. And quickly we realized that hip hop was going to be the words that were used against us, and the kind of coded language that were going to be used as ways to police our company disproportionately, deny us licenses. And we were just generally mishandled very often in the beginning of our business. We also didn't know how to ask for help and resources, how to approach city service meetings. Like, it felt really confusing. And I think because there were allies, friends, supporters, and mentors that had worked within these systems, it changed the trajectory of how we worked within them. We had people who, one, looked like us that we could approach and ask questions that would help validate our experiences. And that was really important to us in the beginning of our business. And also, we wanted to note that, you know, this is something that's happened with us since 2012, but it also happens across to every, I won't say all, to many of the promoters of color in the city of Providence. And pretty much generally anyone who produces hip hop programming. We can see this in many ways, specifically in the amount of hip hop shows, concerts that are canceled because of police pressure, based on what a fear of estimated violence will be. So that's one thing that we obviously notice in the city. There are a lot of times that we are pressured or questioned about the validity and safety of events that have not even happened yet. Regardless of kind of the planning, the licenses being granted, there's a secondary level of policing that we feel like our industry faces. And also we can see this example used in the amount of disproportionate police details that we are expected to have in comparison to other events that have the same capacity. So for example, Day Trail at one point was a 2,000 person event, and we were required to have X amount of police details, 7 to 10, and we had to pay the hourly rate out of our pockets. And similar event sizes with liquor, like a beer festival, have 1 to 2 police officers. And it's definitely based on demographics. We just think it's really important to highlight that those are systems that we engage with, but these are things that happen very often. Another example, I think at this point, it was around 2015, we had found a great community partner in the Steel Yard, and we had hosted Day Trail there. And it was the first time that we were in a third-party space that we were fully funding the infrastructure of our event, meaning we had to build a stage, we had to put in sound, we had to get security, build the bars, get the whole thing was a from the ground project. And we felt, one, really lucky to have partners in the arts and creative services that could understand that we wanted to do things that might have needed more elbow grease and less like management, versus some of the other venue partners we had used wanted us to be able to go with preferred vendors that cost X, Y, and Z, that typically were white vendors, were typically definitely priced out of our group. And we were able to kind of go to the Steel Yard, have our own list of preferred vendors, and start building our own kind of infrastructure with a system of people who understand, respect, and want to grow the creative economy with us. And I think at that point, we also recognized that we had to we were forced to take a much more specific seat in advocating for ourselves, but also for our community, and also became kind of educators for city officials, branches of government, police department, board of licenses. And we've sat through, I can't even name the amount of meetings outside of business hours, the number of extraneous conversations that we've had, basically educating, correcting, supporting with no payment, obviously, the wrongdoings of departments. We've offered our time and energy to help create more just systems and advocate for our community. And, you know, I think Jay and I both have talked about this often, but we throw events where adults are drinking from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. And for 3,500 people. And the most difficult part of our job is dealing with the systems that are in place to help support our economy or support our system. I would take throwing a Day Trail any day. The stressors of event planning, any of us who are in the creative world know the stresses of throwing an event and all the things that can go wrong. This is definitely the most taxing portion of our work, is going through these systems, having the patience to be educators, to be racially judged and put into boxes, and to not be supported. And ironically, these systems of paperwork and public meetings are the systems that we need to engage with in order to make money and build the economy that we obviously are supporting on the other end. And we feel as though, honestly, the paperwork and the public meetings that we're speaking of uphold racism, specifically in the creative sector, and even more specifically in music and arts. And addressing and changing these systems to specifically call out the Board of Licenses, city service meetings, and through arts, culture, and tourism, that's the one major step that we really want to see change in the next 10 years, because that has been one of the largest barrier, I think, over the last 10 years in our work.
And to kind of piggyback what Sabrina was saying, I think a thing to think about, because of whose voices are projected or allowed to, like, I guess, like, take up space, as people would say, is that a lot of what we do culturally is forced to remain underground because people don't understand our culture. And a lot of times we're not even, I would say for the most part, we're not doing anything that's against the law. It's just not in the preference of what certain people in the city would like to see. And I think that's going to be something that's very important. Before you can even talk about like the economics of a lot of this stuff and people having successful businesses, it's just like, you know, how do we treat and maintain these relationships with people who are just trying to add value and culture to the city?
Yeah, and we just want to advocate for the quality of life of Black and Brown Providence residents. I think quality of life is used a lot as a blanket term that usually talks about a very small group of Providence residents. And so everyone who's in this chat that's from the Stay Silent community, we just want to say we appreciate y'all for coming to this, and we really, really encourage you to become even more involved and utilize your voice, because this is super important, and we appreciate y'all for including us in the convo.
Yeah, thank you, Jay and Sabrina. Absolutely amazing. A lot of things to think about there. And, you know, I think that following the chats, I think there's been some questions brought up also about Minneapolis. How do they deal with the city? How do we inform policy in the city to make sure that we can create the events, create the art that we need to, and we can also benefit from the activity, the economic activity around it. Make it streamlined so that people can explore the culture and the benefit without being bogged down. And we've got one more speaker to go, which is James Mark, joining us from North and Big King, has been owner and operator of bakeries, restaurants, is a craftsperson, and is dedicated, I think, to buying locally and supporting the culinary arts. So James, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you, everybody. So my name is James Mark. I am the owner and operator of Big King Restaurant and North Restaurant, both in Providence. Two small restaurants, one's 60 seats, the other one's 21 seats. You know, I, first of all, like, snaps to Stay Silent, like, that was huge. You guys are the best. You know, what I wanted to, like, speak on is how both in, you know, the culinary arts and the restaurant industry, and also in the more traditional arts industries, a lot of that labor that's involved in those industries is exploited labor. And that is hidden exploited labor that is not public facing. In restaurants, it's often cooks or servers, which can be public facing, but is hidden behind a veneer of hospitality. Within the arts community, it can be apprentices or other folks that are learning or interning or all along the lines that are either unpaid or paid very minimally. And, you know, I can only really speak to the restaurant industry with any kind of expertise, but like, there is exploitation happening at every single level, whether it's where you're buying your produce from, or your meat or your fish from, what practices those farmers and fishermen are putting in place, or the labor force within the restaurant, the labor force on the farms. And it is easy. The simple answer is you can do all the right things. You can buy food from people that you know, that are using practices that you know well. You can pay your folks well or a living wage, provide them with like unheard of benefits in the restaurant industry, which are very simple, like health insurance and vacation time and that sort of thing. You can do all those right things, but in order, you can't do those things and still be financially competitive with the restaurant that is right down the block that is operating under the industry norms, which are exploitative. And so, you know, the easy way of like thinking about that is like, oh, well, we just need to charge more money for food, and then we can pay all these people these things. But when you're competing against, when you are operating on this uneven playing field, that's when you're forced to make decisions that are either going to hurt the people that work for you or hurt yourself. You know, North has been open 8 years. I've made more than $30,000 in a year once, working 80+ hours a week, every week in those 8 years. Many years I make around $16,000, $16, $17, $18, $20,000. And that's because I choose not to, you know, work in systems that are exploitative. To the best of my ability. And even with that kind of sacrifice, and that includes us being a very busy restaurant that has plenty of national press, that has plenty of local press. And it's like, because we're making decisions that don't allow us to be as profitable as the industry norms. And then, you know, it's like, well, what if everyone just charges more money, or you require certain aspects? You end up having to put up certain financial barriers that prevent folks that like you want to be cooking for or wanting to be providing hospitality for. You put financial barriers in the way, and suddenly they're excluded from the cultural work that you're doing because you're trying to take care of the people that do work for you. And that's a huge hodgepodge. To get back to the point of, you know, how do we address this? And the only way I see it, after 8 years of trying different systems, of, you know, trying different pay structures and trying different, meal structures and all that sort of thing, the only thing that the conclusion I'm at is basically, you need to be advocating on the government levels for higher minimum wages across the board. An end of tipping, or at the very least, the ability to share tips across both through the entire restaurant, and the end of the tip minimum wage. You need to be advocating for universal health care, so that like when people lose their jobs or have to move on, or whatever the reason, their employment is not tied to their health care. And we need to do something about housing. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways of attacking that problem. But I look at like systems in place that like say that, you know, we give massive tax breaks and massive welfare to homeowners, to landowners, through mortgage tax breaks. And no one is complaining about that, but everyone's complaining about $600 a week checks to people that are unemployed, or to folks that are on welfare, or to food stamps. So, you know, it's about, a lot of these like issues are around how they've been framed to us, whether as like a handout or a tax break or whatever. And, you know, I am just trying to, the more and more I delve into it, the more and more experience I've gained in trying to operate things in an ethical way, the more I'm realizing is that it's a rigged game and an uneven playing field, and that we need to be advocating as a community. We need to be organizing ourselves in order to achieve that, for positions, and holding our elected officials accountable to be trying to push for these same positions. That's all I got.
Thank you, James. That That's a good note to end on, is organizing. And, thank you all for sharing your thoughts. I know we are a few minutes behind on schedule, but I did want to get to a couple of questions that came up, and a couple of sort of threads that I think are running between your conversations. And one of those is about the economy of the audience. People, James was just speaking about, how our whole community is affected. People need to be able to afford food. People need to be able to afford cultural access. And Roger, I know that some of the, this is sort of a question for you, is, looking at, you said you're paying youth in Minneapolis to be designers. And, how are they using that money, and how are they using their civic access that they're gaining from that participation, both as creators and as audience in the city?
So how are they using that? So like when we started this pre-Juxta in like 94, we were doing classes in park houses and community centers, and we would have the young people create art, and then we would have art shows and sell that work, and then they would get 80% of what they made. And so like early on, we were able to have young people 8, 9, 10 years old bring $400, $500, $600 home, and that was enabling them to get their own school clothes. And initially that whole pilot was, they were getting their own school clothes, they were like paying bills. Now I think it's like it's now that we're older, we can't employ 8-year-olds, so they start at like 15 or something like that. But they're able to pay their own bills, and they can stay and continue to level up and make more money. And so as like an art practice, let's say I get commissioned to do a mural, I'm going to bring some of those apprentices off Juxta's, like off of the Juxta clock, to make kind of extra income and stuff like that too. So they're able to make a decent amount of money, but other organizations can swoop them up because they have a lot of talent. So advertising firms, marketing firms, they can pay. And so we're trying to figure that out now. So we have a for-profit, smaller one, and our nonprofit is probably our bigger one, but we want to be able to like balance that out.
So you also have a for-profit and a nonprofit, because that's something I was going to ask Jay and Sabrina about. Like, do the same rules of engagement play? Does having a for-profit and a nonprofit allow you to do things that you couldn't do otherwise, regulation-wise? What opportunity does that help with?
I was gonna say, for me, I was gonna say one thing. I think it's more of a. I've noticed that it's more of a perception thing. Like when we speak about the work, like obviously, like there's benefits to being a nonprofit, but I noticed that once we would go to like the board of license or have different conversations, like it almost changed the tone of how people perceive what we do. Like it's like, oh, you guys aren't just like event promoters or club producers or whatever. Like it kind of changed the scope of the way we're spoken about, like for better or for worse, I guess.
And I think another thing, the reason Trade Pop-Up became a nonprofit is because we attempted to be a for-profit art gallery and retail space where at low prices. We were like, we're gonna rent a space, and then anyone who needs art space in the city, needs a place to do a pop-up shop, will be able to rent our space. We quickly realized that is not a realistic thing that is going to happen, because artists are trying to make it make sense, and without grant funding, which again, we had never been in the nonprofit world before becoming a 501c3. And our first time ever receiving a grant as Trade Pop-Up was during this pandemic, and it was from a bank. It wasn't even from any of the foundations, organizations. We find it extremely challenging and almost non-existent for us as Trade Pop-Up to receive funding from a lot of the organizations that are funding other nonprofit organizations. Whether that, I've verbatim been told from people that we should probably just change some of our images so we don't look as Black. And so there's been a lot of these types of discussions that obviously if you're a person of color or if you're a person of color, these don't really sound that crazy, because this is the type of kind of changes that we're often told to do in order to be more fundable, to be more accepted in situations. And I think as Trade Pop-Up, again, like Stay Silent, this was never like an advocacy thing. It was just like, how do we make this space sustainable? And so Day Trail actually funds Trade Pop-Up because our bars are Class F liquor licenses, which means that all of the money from that can go back to our nonprofit. And that is the only way that we fund and keep the space open and have been able to host over 90 artists and creatives and small businesses in the space from the beginning of time. And the grant we just received is because we weren't able to do Day Trail. And so it's keeping our space open. We actually don't have funding to make it to next year. So we're back to the drawing board and trying to assess how to do it. But that is something that is given to Providence nonprofits that has been beneficial for us. And if we hadn't had certain relationships, I'm sure, I don't even know how we would have learned about that.
And something I'd also like to point out about that, like even like, I guess like during our talking portion, I was talking about how like being underground, while you're actually doing things that are legal, but because of where we stand in the world, they try to make it seem like you're doing the wrong thing. And I think the Class F liquor license is a key example of this, because like, you know, every time you say that you're using it, or for a long time, it's kind of like they're looking at you like you're, you know, like you're selling crack out of like your backyard or something like that. Like, it's not, you know, this information is, rather than putting this information at the forefront and saying like, hey, this is an asset to help your organization, it's like, most times when you want to use it, it's like, oh, well, are you like funneling the money to do something else? Which to me, I think is like the most ridiculous thing. And then it becomes you as somebody who's in position with the information, it becomes hard to share that information to other people because
they're going to have to deal with the same scrutiny and may not have the same resources.
Or it almost gets passed down to you like it's a secret where, you know, this stuff isn't secret. This is public information. We're not doing anything wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's actually a really great transition to getting into the sort of share out, because I think a lot of people, I think all of you, thank you so much, first off, for sharing your business models, for opening your books and your minds to what you're thinking about, to how you're serving, you know, how you're serving both sides of the business community, both, you know, the people who you work with and the people who you're partnering with all of your projects. I'm really looking forward to the share out sessions where we're all going to get together and have a chance to discuss. And so thank you again to all of our speakers for hanging in there and sharing. And I'm going to pass it off to MJ to give us a brief check-in on the agenda for the rest of the day.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much. I think I speak for everyone in the room that like you all brought up so many points that some of us see more clearly than others, unfortunately, but I don't work I work in visual arts, but I was seeing so many parallels and sort of the oppressive systems that keep certain people out. It's like it's there everywhere in all aspects of our economy. So yeah, I'm excited for us to take a little break, absorb some of what we just heard. So we will get back together at 3:15, and at 3:15 we will say hey, and then we will split right into groups where we'll be able to get into further discussion about some of the ideas that we're sparking in our minds as we listen to our awesome guest speakers. And we'll have our facilitators kind of leading us through a couple questions so we can get as much feedback about what's not working, and what we can improve, so that by 2030, Providence is like a much more creative economy, is like way smoother, way easier, way awesome, much more awesome and good for people at all levels. So let's take our break. Go get your coffee, go get your water, and I'll see you at, let's do 3:16. 3:16. See ya. We got our DJ hungry here.
I don't even know if this sounds good. I'm just playing it off my phone.
It needs to be louder. Or closer to the better.
Now you just have to look at me in space, I guess, this whole time. Oh, hey, Lisa. How are you? Where are we at?
I think it's a beautiful time to reconvene.
Yeah, I didn't want to risk playing Spotify on my computer because I don't know if the audio would work. There's so much to learn about Zoom. I figured out the background, so now music is the next one.
Each and every day. Thank you, DJ Hungry. All right, take us away, Shay.
Great, welcome back, everyone. I can't see people. Can we switch for a second to gallery view and then go to speaker view? Is that possible? Let me see. Oh, I can do it. Never mind. Speaking of Zoom. Welcome back, everyone. Hope that you got a little bit of time to refresh, reset, stretch out, be in your space. It's so hard to Zoom for so many hours. So thank you so much again for joining us today. So here's the lay of the land for the next round of what we're gonna do. We're gonna jump in and digest a lot of what the speakers shared, hear from you all on what are the threats, challenges, and opportunities in the creative sector, building upon what our speakers shared as well. So these are the instructions. We'll do a round of intros in each little group. But we'll focus on two questions. The first one is, what is Providence's creative economy? How would you define it? And what do you think it's missing? So a little bit of that space to think about what do we have now and what are we missing? And the second question is a visioning one. So how does a healthier creative economy function in 2020, in Providence in 2030? Like, what do we need for the next 10 years? And what has to change right now to enable that future? So we're gonna copy these questions on the chat. Thank you, MJ. Yeah, and we're gonna get out in our groups and just talk through this together so that we can build and share knowledge. So we have about 28 minutes for us to speak together in the groups, and then we'll come back, do a little bit of a debrief, and then hear next steps from Gina. So thank you. Janea is transporting us through this portal of Zoom.
We were very prompt. Look at us.
I'm sorry, maybe we could have talked more. I got nervous. It was just like, it was giving me like a detonator countdown and a big button that I was just like, I'm just gonna press it because I don't want to mess this up.
It always feels like so short. We're like
So
getting
short.
into a deep combo with like some really amazing points and looking at our community in a real deep way. And it just feels so short. But, you know, thank you all.
Yeah, our group solved it. We solved creative economy in like 30 minutes.
What?
It was.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I love that you solved it, but my group questioned what we even define it. So I don't know how to solve a question that we haven't even properly asked yet.
Well, my group was questioning where the resources are going toward and how much investment young people are getting. So
This is some good competition. This is some hot notes.
hot notes. I love that. Speaking of hot notes, does anyone want to share? I think we have time for MJ. How much time? Maybe 2 people can share?
Yeah, I think at least 2, and we'll see where we're at.
Okay, cool. Does anyone want to share any highlights from your group? Some like really juicy things that you feel are going to be key for this new cultural plan?
I'll jump in. I was in a group with Waterfire and Stay Silent, so that was pretty dope. And just a couple of highlights. Economic impact studies, like figuring out the actual impact that different creative industries have on the city and the state, would be really helpful to the practitioners to be able to say, like, this is what we actually draw in. So ACT did a study with the creative nonprofits a while back. We do have a calculator that I can throw in the chat that'll help the creative nonprofits to kind of assess what their impact is. But I don't, to my knowledge, don't have that for the for-profit industries, or we don't have things that are like specific industry specific. So that's something that we can be working towards. And the other thing was like thinking about all the things that go into live event planning. And, James had mentioned the level of exploited labor that's apparent in all of these industries. And there are so many things that go into live events that are out of a producer's control in terms of what they are being charged by city entities, by outside entities. So we want to do a deeper dive into what that looks like.
Thank you, Gina. That resonates. The other thing about that is like, in terms of metrics, who's making them? Because if they're based on measuring a certain kind of cultural or artistic expression that most of the time does not match with what the rest of us in community are building, that's the struggle we've had all these years, so like just plus on everything you had, and wanted to add that we do need to figure out what metrics actually mean to us, like based on what we make. So awesome. This is so good. Who else wants to share? One more. Maybe we have space for 2 more.
I want to, but there's so much noise going on around me that I don't even feel like it's too loud. But I'll go really quick. One of our participants was an awesome videographer, social media producer, and photographer. I don't mean to blow up your spot, Rue, but Rue, who does Stay Silent social media, was in our group. And I just loved that they specifically spoke to regarding this pandemic, certain skills that they had when the pandemic started that actually allowed them opportunities, because as the pandemic went on, the demand for those services went higher, which is just as far as like paying attention to environmental demands, I thought was a good.
Thank you, Chris. That is absolutely true. The pivot and what does it look like? and this is a learning opportunity too, because we should never take anything for granted. If there's anything that we've learned, I think right now. One more.
I'll add something.
Okay.
I've lived here for 5 years, and I'm always kind of amazed that I just don't feel like that artists from this community get a whole lot of recognition. So if there is a way for us to kind of create ways to amplify just the work that's being done by artists all across the community in this community. I mean, many people say that like artists come from Providence or they go to school here and then they go to New York or they go to LA and they're like totally blow up and are amazing and the whole scene loves them. And it's often because they haven't gotten the kind of focus that they need to here. So systems for that would be great.
That's on point. I mean, I feel like that conversation has come up in my own circles even. Like you do reach a certain level in Providence, but what does scaling up mean? Actually, Yarrow did bring it up in our session, and for myself and other peers is like, what does it mean to be supported beyond just being like very emerging artists? You know, what does it mean for Sabrina and Jay to take their work? What does scale mean for us? How do we define that? So that's super important.
That's super important to even think about. Like Prince didn't get a lot of love here for a long time. He had to go out. He would do performances here in North Minneapolis and his people would they were just super shitty to him. So by the time he went out and got some love, then people started to appreciate him. I would say similar to Theaster Gates in Chicago. Like when he went out and started to blow up, then people in Chicago were like really embracing him. And so I think that might be what happens a lot of the time. You have to go out to get love and then you can come back in, then people are pressing you.
That's a huge point, Roger. Makes me think then what opportunities are we creating for our artists to exchange with other cities and build intentionally so that our careers can continue to grow and be nourished? That's
also to piggyback on that, I think when we're thinking about the coverage that we do get, how do we hold our local and regional media outlets accountable for, stronger writing, stronger pieces? A lot of times when we've been contacted, specifically as Stay Silent, to be covered by local media, it has been via email and we never meet people. It's super dry and standard, and like there's not really a story that's being told. And so at this point we don't even do any local media because it's like it feels cyclical. And it was really challenging, I think, this summer specifically to stay out of doing local media, because as soon as everything happened with the killing of George Floyd, we were contacted by a slew of media. And I know a lot of Black and brown creatives were contacted in troves at that point. At this point, it's all dried up. There's no more media attention. There's no more conversation. And that's specifically in Providence. We know that's happening across the country, but I think how do we create media and media systems and hold them accountable that can help get the word out about what's happening within our world?
Thank you so much for that point, Sabrina. That's huge. And in Providence, where we have very little strong media, I have to say, and in Rhode Island in general, that's huge. It's just like, I appreciate that point so much, especially recently. I'll just share something really quick. I am really OCD with media, because journalists, especially if it's work from artists of color, need to step up their game and represent us in the way that really we want to be represented. Like I've had to call media if they do a report on my work or a collaborator's work to be like, change those photos, like that quote is wrong. And it's like, just step up your game. Media is super valuable and they need to show up the same way that we're working hard to do really on point work. They need to do that too. So I appreciate your point immensely. That's part of the creative economy and we don't talk about it enough.
I mean, our local paper doesn't even have a creative column.
Yeah, I don't even.
As a creative capital. So, and it's.
Yeah, real talk.
They can barely write traditional news stories.
That's a whole conversation.
Yeah. We'll put a pin on that. Maybe for another cultural design studio, we talk about this to see how we can reshape and rethink media for our cultural sector. That'd be dope. Oh my God, thank you so much, everyone. There's so much rich, so many amazing ideas that we leave with and that will inform this plan, which is basically gonna help us shape the next 10 years. So I'll pass it on to Gina for next steps, because this is not the only chance that folks will get to contribute to the plan. So Gina.
Thank you, Shay. All right, so I'm gonna pop our blog site into the chat so everybody has it. You've probably seen it already. All of the information on the planning process lands here. We have additional planning studios coming up. We have one tomorrow on art and well-being, which is the intersection of artists and health, but really looking at social determinants of health and climate justice. So really kind of looking at all of the work that's already been happening over the last 10 years and prior, elevating that, highlighting that, and trying to move that forward as a city that also has a really cool climate justice plan and in the middle of this pandemic. So really trying to connect those dots. We also have two coming up the week after on tourism and advocacy, and also the creative workforce. So similar to this one, which is sort of macro level of creative economy, this one will be on looking at how to support individual artists and what they need to thrive in Providence. So those are coming up. We'll also have one that's not yet scheduled on resilient arts nonprofits. So you can check that out. They'll all be listed on the blog. After this, in a few weeks, we will be sending out, we'll start drafting the plan documents. When we send out briefing papers, there'll be a space for you to be able to comment on what we're writing. We'll have a public meeting to look at the entire draft later this fall. And we also have focus groups. So if you are interested in following up on one of these specific topics, like maybe we want to have a focus group for large scale event planners, maybe the film folks want to get together, maybe design wants to get together. This is really, it's a simple Google form. You can get together with your family and friends over Zoom, or get to a park, call somebody. It's very general, open-ended questions that you can just fill out and send that form in, and then we'll gather the data from there. So the Google form, oh, thank you, MJ. It's in the chat. So you can pop that up too. And yeah, you can email me anytime. You can email Stephanie, call the department, and we are here to support you all through this. This is really, I just want to highlight too that while the city is organizing this, that we obviously are not positioned to own all of it. There are things that you don't want the city taking care of, like that really need to be owned by individual artists or arts organizations and arts businesses. So we will figure out a way to make sure that we are all working as an ecosystem and together through this and through the planning process over the next 10 years. And also being held, holding each other accountable to the work that needs to happen to move the creative economy and our creative ecosystem forward. So thank you all so much for coming and for being a part of this. We are so appreciative of your time and your energy. Thank you, Roger and James and Jason and Sabrina and Howie and Shay and MJ and Stephanie and everybody who showed up today. It's really awesome to see so much love and dedication to our artists in the city.
Let's all unmute for a moment and give a collective whoop to each other and to a vibrant creative economy. Woo!
People should come see Fireflower. People should come see Fireflower.
Yes, thank you, Barnaby. Come to Fireflowers.
Stage project.
Thanks so much. This weekend, happening this weekend, shameful plug. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for everything you do to support artists and the arts and young people. Be well, stay strong.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Roger.